Trevor McNamara, if anyone doesn't know me, I'm the head coach at Alamo Heights, and then also one of the club directors for two-time lacrosse. I appreciate you guys coming out, and just whenever I get asked to speak at things, there's always so many topics I want to hit because I just love lacrosse. Like, I do lacrosse 24/7. My fiance hates it because we'll have a game and I'll go home and watch 5 box games in the NLL. So every time I'm trying to choose a topic's hard just because I love the game. There's so many things to hit on. But I think one of the most important things is when we think about ourselves as coaches and trying to build good humans and players is how are we going to do that in an efficient manner? And that's through practice planning and drill design and making sure our guys get the most out of practices because things go by really, really fast, especially when you're at practice and you got things to hit on. And the next thing you know, didn't touch anything you wanted because the time moves so quickly. But this practice planning and drill design, as my lacrosse background, I was running through it pretty quickly. So I'm from Michigan. I put all the coaches that I've coached under or played under because I learned a lot of things from them. I've been fortunate to be able to learn at every single level of my lacrosse career from these great coaches. So I'm originally from Michigan. My high school coach coached MCLA Division I. He went to multiple national championships as a coach, so then I got to learn a lot from him as a player in high school. And then from college, I played under Coach Berkman, who his dad is the most winningest coach in college history at Salisbury with 13 national championships, so I got to learn a lot from them. And then when I was a graduate assistant at North Central, I played under coached with Coach Farrell, who played at Springfield. And was an All-American goalie. So I got to learn a lot of awesome things under some good coaches. And then just helped me see a bunch of different tactics and planning and drill designs from that. Also, if you guys have any questions, interrupt me at any time. More than happy to answer questions throughout this. Want to make it super laid back, but also interactive with you guys. So practice planning. We're going to hit a couple things. We'll go through the practice plan. We'll go over some of my favorite drills that we do in a practice plan. But when we're going through practices, I always think about what are the goals of each practice? What do we want to get to? I don't like practices where we hit every single thing. That's what we have pregame practice for. But when I do a practice plan, let's think about our goals. So the practice plan in front of you guys is going to be fast breaks, odd numbers, clearing the ball. All those things play a part. So you clear the ball, then you get the transition. So when we do practices, let's think about what we're actually trying to accomplish and what are the goals of each practice. So then we set expectations for our players. So I like to share practice plans with our guys. We'll always talk about tomorrow's practice at the end of today's practice. So set those expectations and then make sure those expectations are clear with assistant coaches as well. So we'll see a couple things in the simple slides, but how we do things at Alamo Heights is we have a Google Drive. We have Monday through Friday practice. We text all the time throughout every single day, but all my coaches will put their drills in there. We'll change things whenever we want. So it makes it super interactive with the coaching staff, and we're all on the same page. So having those goals and expectations for coaches and players and using things like Google Drive really helps get everyone involved on the same page so we all have the same expectations and we're not going into things blindly. And then design with a purpose. So when we're designing, I like to do what sort of Coach Presler is talking about is look at your whole season and then block off what we want to get in each week, each month, and then as we move into playoffs, what we need to actually hit. So before we build weekly practice plans, I'll look at a season and say, hey, these first 3 weeks, we need to get these three things in, and then build on that and keep doing that, so on and so forth. That'll help you just really get those concepts in that you need. And as you move on through the season, you really know who you become as a team, and that way you can practice and plan practices accordingly. But having a whole season, this I think really helps you see each concept and when we want to get those in. And then use that calendar, use a template. So that template that you guys have in front, I use that for pretty much all of our practices. Nothing changes, just besides the drills and times, dates, players, everything of that nature. And then introduce new concepts each week. So what I just hit as well, keep it fresh. We don't ever do the same drill 2 days in a row, and we don't ever start off practice the same way every single day. So we'll change things up because I don't think it's good for our guys to go in and say, hey, we're going to do this drill, and they know exactly what it's going to be, and it's going to be ABC every single day. I like to start things differently. So we'll have things from pre-practice reps, then we will go into stretch, and then we might go into like the practice plan in front of you. It's a 3-second scrimmage. So we're going to scrimmage first thing in practice. Then after, we'll go into stick drills. So I think switching it up, keeping it fresh, get your guys engaged, and that way it also allows for them to go full speed before we break down fundamentals. And then keep a daily practice theme. So theme for the practice plan in front of you guys was, like I said, the fast breaks, odd numbers, and clearing the ball. Build your whole practice plan off of that. That's how I do it, and I think it helps because we can build on concepts throughout the practice. So when we go through some drills, you'll see that we're doing a passing drill that's going to later on lead to a clearing drill that we're doing, so our guys understand the basics of it, and then we can progress into something that's a little bit more high level. Any questions on that at all? Like I said, interrupt me if you have questions. More than happy to answer. And then the Google Drive. Like the Google Drive is absolutely huge for us. I have a full-time job, so it's hard for me to do everything I want with coaching. So having a Google Drive and having assistants who really help out, like Coach Jordan, he's one of my assistants at Heights, having them to interact and add things to that Google Drive is just, it's a next level game changer. So I don't know if anyone uses that or anyone has practice plans and different systems, but having a system where everyone can contribute at one time really helps. And then set times for each drill. So I know Coach Presler hit it, how he had that game manager. So we do the same thing. We have a time for every single drill. If we go over, we're not going to go over the practice time, but we might just not be able to get to every single drill that we want to. And then something this year that I'm excited for is we're actually going to have a visible clock at practice. I've always just used my watch or my cell phone, but we're going to have a visible clock. So our guys will know, hey, we have 12 minutes for this drill. Like, as soon as it's over, we're moving on. Unless we really need to spend some extra time on a specific part of the drill. But having that clock will give your guys, give your girls an actual physical representation of seeing it. So I think that's going to be huge this year, instead of me just saying, hey, we have 6 minutes left. And as I've hit on, just build up from some of the previous drills as well. So when we go from a passing drill, use those same concepts into a transition drill, that will go into a clearing drill. So it allows them to connect all the dots to the finished product. And then recap each practice. I know I mentioned it earlier as well, but once we finish a practice, I always like to go over everything that we did with our guys and have them tell me and the coaches what we did, and then if they have any questions, ask those questions so we can make sure that no one's missing any of the pieces that we're doing, because every single day we're going to keep building out. So just recap those practices, recap each practice, and make sure that there's no loose stragglers. Drill design. This is one of my fun ones, and how I tie in the coaches is I talk a lot with my college coaches, with some of my buddies who coach high school, some of my buddies who coach college, of drill design. So I know there's a million lacrosse drills out there, but how I do a lot of things is I make a lot of things up. I know what we need to get done, so I'll create drills based on that, and you'll see some of them that we'll go over, but don't be afraid to make some drills up. If you have a concept you want to get and something you really want to hit on, like 2v1 ground balls, it doesn't have to be a specific drill that's already created that everyone knows. You can make things up to be able to hit your needs to get what you need out of that drill. So I make a lot of drills up, and with those drills, I don't have a lot of names for them, so I usually just call them what they sort of look like. So like one of the passing drills on there is 3 around ones, because there's 3 guys around one guy, so it just like makes sense to me. So don't be afraid to create those drills and just make things up, and if they don't work, move on from them. So that's sort of how I create some of those. And within creating those drills is, what are we trying to accomplish? So know if we're trying to create a clearing drill, let's try to make those numbers and the spacing between passes and different lines a little bit bigger, because we're trying to create a successful clear. So, questions on that at all? build up from the previous drills and concepts, and then constraints. So this is one of my favorite parts as well with constraints. And I don't know if anyone listens to the Lacrosse podcast with Jamie Monroe. Anybody? Highly recommend it. I steal shamelessly from a lot of people, but a lot from that podcast as well, because he interviews a ton of college head coaches, a ton of just different lacrosse legends, and I get a lot of stuff from that. But using constraints and different drills can be an absolute game changer. So you can take a line drill, for example. A constraint could be time. You got 30 seconds to make 20 passes. If you don't, we're doing it again. It could be how we start a drill. It could be starting with a pick or a double team. It could be where the ball starts. Use different constraints to make things challenging and to try to get those desired results that we're looking for in games and putting people in game situations. So I think constraints is an absolute game changer, and taking this boring drill and making it a little bit different and adding different things into it. One of my other favorite constraints is spacing. So instead of having this whole open field, we only can use 10 yards. You get 10 yards to do a two-man game, and that's something we got to figure out, and having our guys actually go through and have those challenges and try to figure out how to use some of the constraints that we put in to build and progress. So that's one of my favorite things that I really steal shamelessly from the Lacrosse podcast, because the way he talks about lacrosse is this next level, and it sort of breaks it down that there aren't these specific things you can do. We can really sort of build off concepts to get to where we need to be. Lacrosse, and I can share it with you after this. So there is no really schedule for it. I sort of just share stuff when it comes out, but it's a really good podcast, and there's just a lot of stuff on it that I've learned from. So there's some of the constraints. Where does the ball start? Like I said, time, size of the field, number of passes, who has to score. That's a fun one too that we'll do with our offense. We'll have a 3v3 and we'll say, hey, like Jacob needs to score. We won't tell the defense that, but I'll tell my offense he needs to score. I don't care how it happens, but this guy has to score. So it gets them to be creative. So it's another fun constraint that I like to use. And then start with the elbow, start with the pick. There's so many more, but those are some of the most common ones that we use at practice. And then, like I said, if a drill doesn't work, change it. Like we fail, or our players make mistakes all the time. Coaches make mistakes as well. So don't be afraid to try new things. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. Change it. Mix things up. And then, as I mentioned, change constraints if the things aren't working. So if we have a 10-yard space and you realize that it's super crowded and busy, make it 20 yards. Like, change the constraints to get what you think you need out of that drill. So when you're in that situation in a game, your guys have been there before in practice through those drills and constraints. And then adapt, overcome, reflect. I think it's always good on each drill, and something that we do as coaches after practices is like, hey, what drills did we like? Do we think it got to where we needed to be? Then we reflect on it and see how we can change things and move forward. And then also just use film. So we watch a ton of film. I watch a ton of film. Film your practices, film drills, and see how your guys are doing in those practices and film. All right, we'll go over this practice plan here, but I'm more than happy to send out this template. It's a template that I created that I use for all of our practice plans, but all we have here is date, our week. We have our theme at the top, which is fast breaks, odd numbers, and clearing. And I put play fast on there, so I always like to put some this little key words that I think are beneficial for the practice. So play fast, and then on the left side we have all of our times. Middle we have all of our drills, and then on the right side is field setup. That one is usually more for like preseason, because sometimes we will just go helmet and gloves, but we don't really use that side too much. First thing we have, I know it's sort of hard to see on this, that's why I printed some out, is the pre-practice reps. So we're a big fan of getting our guys out on the field before practice and having them doing beneficial things instead of just hanging out. So we have offense usually does shooting, skeleton plays, different things of that nature. Defense will do things of footwork, work on two-man games, clearing, long passes, everything of that nature. So then we get some of those reps out of the way. Then we'll go over, actually bring it in, and then we go from practice 6 to 8. At 6 o'clock, we go into our lap and stretch. So if you look at the lap, it says GB lap, something that one of my coaches introduced was our GB lap. So instead of just doing a normal lap, get everyone to get a ball and do ground balls the entire lap. We're warming up, we're getting our bodies loose, but we're also doing 50 ground balls in one lap. So it's something that I really like to do, and I think it's beneficial because instead of just jogging, they're messing around, now they're actually getting ground ball reps. And then we go into our dynamic stretch. So I really like that. We don't do it every day, but we do it probably every other day. And then we have, after we stretch, like I said, I like to mix things up. So we go to a 3-second scrimmage. We'll do about 10 minutes of that for this practice. 3-second scrimmage is you only have the ball in your stick for 3 seconds. It creates a lot of decision making, it creates a lot of unsettled situations, and it makes people play fast and uncomfortable. And I think being in those uncomfortable states can create some really good decision makers, and then allows them to see things that they might not see in a 6v6 situation when we're in a 6v6 practice. So the 3-second scrimmage.
They only have the ball for 3 seconds?
Yeah. So you only can have the ball in your stick for 3 seconds. If it's in your stick for longer, blow a whistle to turnover. So, good question though. Yeah, so we're playing full field 10v10, but the ball can only be in your stick for 3 seconds. So you have to be able to move off ball, you have to be able to move the ball, you have to be able to communicate. It builds all those good habits that we want, but it's also a fun game to start practice with because they like it, gets them moving, and I don't think they realize how many decisions they're making in that 10-minute 3-second scrimmage. So. After we'll do that 3-second scrimmage, sometimes we start with sticks first, sometimes we don't. I like to mix it up. I like to keep it fresh, as I said. I don't like doing the same thing over and over and over. It gets redundant and boring. We'll go into sticks after that. So one of my favorite drills that I think I created, I don't know if I did or not. I've never seen it anywhere else. Like I said, I make a lot of my drills up. It's called 3-round-1s. It's my favorite passing drill because it gets everyone involved at every single second of the drill. 2 balls, you're moving, you're never standing still. It's 3-round-1s. So basically how this looks is set up, there's 4 players per group. There's 4 cones set up in a box shape. Balls at every single cone in case they throw balls away. It's gonna happen. That's why I like to put balls there so don't kill the drill. Then we have 3 players in the outside cones with 1 cone open. So if we look at phase 1, there's player 1 top left, player 3 bottom left, player 2 top right. And then we have 1 guy in the middle who doesn't have a ball. There's 2 balls that start the drill on the outside. So instructions, outside players pass to the middle player. After outside player passes the ball, they run to the open cone in the box. And it sounds super confusing, but until you see it, it's super simple. Middle player passes to the open outside player. After middle player receives ball, they pass ball to the open outside player, and then the middle player will stay in the middle until the coaches say switch. So this drill will go on for like 30 seconds to a minute. Middle guy will never leave. So if we look at phase 1, like I said, player 1 top left will pass the ball to the middle guy and then run all the way to the open corner of the box. Does that make sense to everybody? And then phase 2, middle guy has the ball, so he passes to the open guy who didn't have the ball, or hasn't touched the ball yet. And then we go into phase 3. Now the ball is out with player 2. 3 has the ball, passes to the middle guy, and then runs to the open cone. So the guys on the outside are always moving, and the guys in the middle is constantly moving and getting a ton of reps. Does that make sense to everybody, or is that sort of confusing?
You got 2 balls going at the same time.
Correct. So if you don't have a ball, you're going to get the ball next. If you have a ball, you're passing it to the middle. And we can walk through it, because it's confusing to our guys until we do it. Do I got like 3 volunteers who want to walk through it? Coach Mark, Coach Jordan, anyone else? All right, we'll walk through it. Super easy, super simple. So if we have our box here, Coach Mark, you'll go in the middle. Coach Jordan will come over here. So let's say I have a ball, Coach Jordan has a ball. I start with it, I'm gonna throw it to Coach Mark. After you pass the ball, you go to the open side of the box. So I'm running, I already passed it. All right, then Coach Mark's catching it and he's throwing it over here because I have a ball. So then Coach Jordan now has the second ball, throws it to Coach Mark, After you pass the ball, you're always going to the open side. Middle guy stays in the middle. So then I don't have a ball, you throw it to me, and so on and so forth. Does that make sense? Middle guy is constantly, if you come outside, if I'm the middle guy, I'm catching the ball here, I'm catching it, then I'm throwing the open guy, like I'm always moving my feet in and out. Any questions on that? Did I explain it okay? So after you pass it, you go to the open side of the box. So if we look at this, the open cone is bottom right. If number one passes it to 4, one has to run all the way through to the bottom right corner. And once you see it, it makes total sense, but when you don't see it, it can be super confusing at first. But my favorite passing drill that we do, and it allows guys to be creative, allows guys to move their feet, and it builds good habits of every time you pass the ball, I want you moving. If you pass the ball and stand still, you're killing the offense and wasting our time. But thank you, guys. You didn't have a seat. I just wanted to show that physical representation of it. But that is one of my favorite drills, and if you are confused on it and want to see it, I can send you guys some videos on it as well. So I think it's one of the most beneficial passing drills there is. After we go 3 round ones, we'll go into full field passing. This is a concept that we'll build up on as we move into the practice plan. This full field passing, what I do in it is I put cones where we're going to have spots in our clear to clear the ball. So these cones are just cones that we put all over the field, because in our clear, that's where we need our guys to be. So instead of doing a meatloaf and it's a zigzag that they're just passing and running, you can put cones out there where you want your guys to be at in the clearing situation. So how this drill works, super easy, is you're going to follow your pass. We'll go from goalie over to cone 1, because in our clear we have guys breaking out into that banana cut. That's going to be most likely a close pull, and then we're going to throw that ball up to a midi, which is going to be cone 2. Then we want to hit another midi or LSM in the middle, and then we throw all the way down to an attackman. So we're trying to replicate full field passing, but the passing should strategically make sense within our clear. And then what I like to do is go, instead of hitting a 5-yard pass to the goalies, we go all the way over, so our poles and shorties can get good at passing from one side of the box to the other side of the box, and then we'll actually hit the goalie from here, and then we go and break up into a midi spot, another pass from 6 to 7, 7 to 8, 8 to 9. And I like to show this just because you can make these up to fit whatever your clear is. And I don't make a lot of my drills up, but I try to do it in a way that makes sense for our guys and also the theme of the practice. Questions on that drill? So instead of just doing partner passing every day, try to do some drills that are going to accomplish stick skills, but also build into the themes that we're trying to get to. All right, so next drill, one of my other favorite drills that we do is 32s from the side. So anytime we do odd numbers, I just call them 32s, 43s, 54s. So the 3 is going to be offense, 2 is going to be defense. So doing 32s from the side, easy drill to set up, easy drill to run, high reps for any of your players. Set up, we have the 3 offensive lines outside the restraining line. So we have 1, 2, 3 on the left side of the field. 2 defensive lines, 5 yards of the opposite restraining line, so where those cones are at. And then we have a black line almost on the opposite side of the crease. So our offensive guys can't go past that line. So it forces them to stay on one side of the field. And what it really encourages our offensive guys to do is get upfield, draw and dump, sort of a push-pull mentality. We're trying to pull the defense out and then push the ball. And then defensively, we got to communicate. We can't overextend. We got to get out, so we can't give them easy 12-yard shots, but then we got to get back in quicker. So it's a 3v2 from the side. Ball will start in the middle. Coach will throw it in. And then these 3 guys on the side, 1, 2, and 3, are playing 3 against the 2 defense in the middle of the 2D. And then as soon as the shot, everyone gets out, next group comes in. Questions on that at all? But I love that drill because it forces people to communicate, but there's also that constraint where you can't go on the whole side of the field. So it really makes you use your right hand, and then you flip sides, and it makes you use your left hand. How am I doing on time? Do we know when we switch? Anybody? Because I could just talk for hours and Blake will be out there freezing. Okay. Perfect. Let me see. All right, this is another one of my favorite drills that we sort of made up last year, and the coaching staff helped me sort of make this one up. But it's our Chariot races. So theme of the practice, right, is still fast breaks, odd numbers, clearing the ball. So didn't know what to call it. Coach Cody, for if anyone who knows him, said Chariot races, and it just stuck with me because it made sense. So what we do is we divide our guys up. We'll have white team, dark team, both all positions on both teams. We set up 3 cones outside the restraining line. So we have 1 cone about GLE, 1 cone top of the restraining line, and then the other cone's going to be almost at the 50-yard line, and then all of them are outside that restraining line because that's where we want to clear the ball. We want to get wide and space the field out. Instructions. So we'll have 2 goalies in the cage. 1 goalie is going to be on dark team, 1 goalie is going to be on the red team. So we'll do like a 50% shot to start it on each goalie. As that goalie makes the save, those 3 players from each team have to sprint to each cone. And as they get to that cone, the goalie will then outlet to each side. So dark goalie will go outlet to the left side, red goalie outlet to the right side, and they have to pass that ball up to each cone. Whoever passes the ball to their 3rd cone at the 51st is an offense. The other team then has to get in, drop their ball, and be on defense. So let's say, for example, black gets there first. All these red guys then have to get in and play defense, and black's now attacking the cage. So it creates that clearing the ball. As soon as you clear the ball, you're on offense. If you don't clear the ball efficiently and get there first, you're on defense. Questions on that one? And this is sort of what it looks like in a different manner as well. So like I said, black got there first. Now red needs to get in to stop that fast break. And this is sort of what it should look like. And a lot of times, I know it's 3-on-3, and we're talking about odd numbers, but a lot of times, it's going to be 2v1s, 3v2s, 1-on-0s, because we're passing that ball from this top cone, and if we could skip it all the way down to that bottom cone, and if red doesn't get in, it could be a 1-on-0 with the goalie. So it's a lot of different situations that drill presents, and a lot of decision making that you have to do on the field as well. After the Chariot races, we'll go into some skeleton clears. So we'll actually talk about our clear. I create player packets for all of our guys with all of our clears, all of our plays, everything of that nature is in there. So we'll introduce 1 clear at a time. But what I like to do with it is we'll talk about it, we'll send it in our group me, and then we actually walk to every single spot in the clear. So we'll walk and talk. We'll say, hey, this is where one of our poles goes. We'll walk up to one of our middies where they're supposed to go at, and then so on and so forth. So we'll go over that, and then we'll go into skeleton clearing based on this empty clearing, and then we'll have coaching and tackle and help ride. So that's a skeleton clear. And then in this practice, odd numbers, fast breaks, clearing the ball, we'll do full field 54 Genny. So it's West Genny drill. Does everyone know what that is? Anyone have questions on it? So it's going to be 5-on-4. You can do it 3-on-2, 4v3. There's a cage in the middle. We'll just go. So there's cage, and then we'll have lines at GLE. So we'll put 2 cones on each side of the cage. For how I'm going to explain it is we'll do 4v3. So we'll have 2 cones on the right side of the cage at GLE, 2 cones on the left side. That'll be the dark team, and then at the other end of the field, we have the same thing. That's going to be the red team. So one team will come down with 4 guys, and they're going to be trying to score on this cage. The last person to touch the ball on offense is out, and then the red team will come down and try to play. So it'll be 4-on-3, full field. So it works on the clearing, it works on decision making, and then what I like, it's the hitting conditioning. So sometimes we'll shorten the field and do it. Other times we'll lengthen the field, depending on what we're trying to get out of the drill. And I can always show you some film of that as well. And then at the end, we just have ball hunt, talk, we'll recap practice, we'll go over what we thought went well, we'll talk about what we're going to be doing tomorrow, and then something that I like as well is just practice notes, and then the bottom part is players who led, players who impressed, players who hustled, and then just giving them recognition at the end of practice. Because given the guys who were leading some younger guys, given the guys who went all out of practice and recognition, will hopefully help people want to do that the next day of practice. So, any questions at all? And just keep it on those drills. So that if you notice how practice went from full field clearing into fast breaks, into odd numbers, into skeleton clears, and then into that 54 Genny drill, everything's tied together trying to build up on the concepts. So if they don't get a concept in the first drill, hopefully it clicks in that second or third drill. And that recap is just everything I went over. Any questions? Anything. It doesn't have to be specific on this. It could be anything lacrosse related or non-lacrosse related. Anybody?
Much of this is middle school or junior programs running.
Yeah, so all those drills can be tailored and different constraints can be moved to meet skill level. So practice planning and concept-wise, I try to get down there as much as I can to help those guys, but they're running similar systems and similar schemes, but it's based on skill level. So they might not do the exact drills, but there's variations that they can do. Anyone else?
Kind of not a related question, but do you have a specific app or website you strong plays out on?
So, I've been looking at different ones. Are you talking about the one that I used here? So that one I found a couple days ago, but I usually just draw them out myself on paper and then send them to our guys. There's an app that I found a couple days ago that, like that one, but there's another one that I found called Just Play Sports Solutions, but I think it's very expensive. I haven't used it yet. I requested a demo for it, but that one looks good. I haven't found a great one yet that hasn't cost an arm or leg. Good question though. And if someone could build one, that'd be great. Any other questions? Well, that's all I got. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions or want this template, I'm more than happy to send it out to you guys. If you have any questions on drills too, I have hundreds of drills that I'm more than happy to share. So I appreciate it. I think our next one, we're going to go down with Coach Blake at the field. So make sure we bundle up. Thank you guys.